pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to have you out there in the audience. Well, first of all, let me remind people out there that on October 16th at 11:30 at the Pulaski Monument, which is located in Pulaski Park here in the city of Fall River, there will be a ceremony commemorating the General Pulaski. He fought in the Revolutionary War, died of his wounds at the Battle of Savannah. He was a cavalry officer and came over from Poland to fight on the side of the Americans in their struggle against the Great Britain, England. And he's known as the father of the American cavalry and here in the United States of America. So that'll take place at 11:30. That's a Sunday at the park, Pulaski Park. So, well, Gabe Andrade, school committee man, glad to have you back on.
Glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, you look sharp tonight. Where are you going?
Well, I have a meeting for Prince Henry Society. Actually, it's an installation of officers later tonight. So.
Are you an officer?
No, not anymore. I'm past president, going back 2 years ago.
Oh yeah. It's always good to let someone else.
Absolutely. People don't realize it's not all glory. There's a lot of there's a lot of drudgery involved. So.
Yeah, the captain of a ship doesn't get a good night's sleep.
Not only that, he goes down with the ship.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, so what's going on with the school department? You got a new superintendent. Seems to be doing very well.
So far, it is early, but we had what seems like a pretty good opening of schools. I haven't heard much to the contrary. We did have an interesting opening day. I forget which agencies were involved in putting this on, but they thought of having greeting the students as they came in the door the first day.
Is that right?
They called it a high five. So we had a number of people from different walks of life. We had firefighters, policemen, business people at each elementary school at least, greeting kids as they came in the door, giving them high five, and which was a nice thing. How long that kind of good feeling lasts, I don't know, but at least it was a nice thing for opening day.
So. Well, let's get on to a subject that we were talking about before the program opened, and that is the vote, which will be in November when people go to the polls. I guess it's question number 4 in regards to whether marijuana should be legalized in the state of Massachusetts or not. Do you have any, in relation to the school department, what do you make of this whole thing?
Well, it's kind of a difficult issue because there are a few reasons that you might want to support it, but Mike Rodriguez went with a delegation to Colorado, which is, as you know, has legalized it.
Spent 3 or 4 days there.
And some of the things that he came back with were a little scary. One of the things that he said is one of the main issues, one of the main negative issues in terms of legalizing marijuana, completely legalizing marijuana, was the issue with edibles. So in other words, you can put marijuana or the oils from marijuana in foods, and like candy, cupcakes, brownies, candy bars, and whatnot, and of course
ham sandwich.
It could be. And
kids bring lunches to school anymore.
And it's hard to detect. It's hard to detect, and the effects can be not so good. Let's say so. So I don't know. If the vote were today, I don't know how I would vote on it. I'll definitely have to take a close look at it between now and election day.
Now, what does a teacher do? He has someone in class, obviously not cognizant of the instruction going on. Might be someone that you know, is 16, 15, 16, 17 years old in high school, drowsy looking, putting their head on the desk or table, and just really not paying attention at all. And what happens in a situation like that? Not to say that the student is on marijuana or anything else.
Right.
There might be a suspicion because of from maybe past behavior or experience of the teacher.
Right, and you have to be careful because the student could be simply have lack of sleep. You know, these days students can be playing video games until very late at night, sometimes even without their parents realizing it. So, plus they have it's been documented that they have a different internal clock than adults do, where they really they're not necessarily sleepy early in the evening, but they are early in the morning when they're gotten up to get ready to go to school. So they can actually
So they
start
still
school
need more rest?
Right. And in fact, Durfee a few years back, not that long ago, maybe about some 3 or 4 years ago, I believe it may have been, maybe a little bit longer than that because I was not on the school committee at that time. They actually moved the start time about 15 minutes later, precisely because of that, 15 minutes.
Oh, but that's
just
minimal.
It is minimal. It might help a little bit.
15 minutes.
They probably could stand to
Your
start
alarm
at night.
clock goes off 6 o'clock in the morning. You say, I need another 15 minutes?
Right. They probably need more like a half hour, 45 minutes or more, and they could probably actually stand to start at 9 o'clock. But that would throw everything else out of whack. But in terms of suspicion of
let me ask you this: if you know, do you think like younger students, maybe a 3rd grade or 4th grade, need more sleep than a high school student?
It's probably, I'm not absolutely sure, but I think it's particularly bad as the students get to adolescence. So I think your suspicion is correct. The younger the younger kids may be better off, but as they get to adolescence, I think their bodies are changing tremendously, and that is one of the elements that really affects them.
Now, since we're on that subject, in a sense, in regards to young students, what is the age now that a student legally has to attend school?
You mean the maximum or the minimum age?
The beginning, yeah.
Oh, they have to be 5 before school begins, or before September 1st. At one time, they could, as long as the student turned 5 by the end of that calendar year, so let's say December 31st, they were okay. They could enter school. But nowadays they don't, and actually I think it's
5 before
school begins, and actually I think it's a good thing.
Well, what is this talk about starting children in school earlier?
That would be preschool. That's the push for preschool. It depends. It could be more likely 4, probably, most likely 4. But I know, for instance, that if there was...
What is the idea of that? I mean, a 4-year-old being sent to school?
Just to get him ready, not necessarily to be prepared, let's say, in math or so much in language, although they're pushing more academics at preschool than they did years back. But to socialize, so they'll know, for instance, behavior-wise, for instance, how to deal with other kids and with the teacher, so that when they come into the kindergarten, they're not totally off the wall because they're not at all prepared for that sort of thing.
So, but that's just talk at this.
Well, there's money involved, obviously. Any extension of, well, you would have to there's a cost involved if you're going to have
Additional teachers, et cetera?
additional teachers, probably maybe rooms. If you don't have them available, you have to find them. And the state does not funds some of the cost now, and the kids who they tried to take in are the kids who need some help. They've determined by some testing that the kid has some disability or some problem where they could be helped by being in school early, but they do not fund a universal preschool. So like Fall River, I know, and apparently a lot of other communities in the area. I know Lakeville, Freetown Lakeville does this also. They will take care of the kids who have some difficulty that they feel that they could help by having them in to school early, and then anyone else who wants to enroll his student in preschool goes on a lottery system because they can't take everyone.
I see, yeah. Now, what about homeschooling? Let's say that a child turns 5 before September, legally required to go to school. The parents say, no, we don't want to send our child to school. Child's too young. We want him home more. We want them in a home environment with the parents. Can they opt to homeschool?
They can. However, they have to be in close touch with the school department, with some designated individual in the school department. Exactly, so that they can cover the curriculum that they're covering in the school system. And I would imagine, I'm not that familiar with it because it's not that terribly common here. It does occur here in Fall River. But it's not droves of kids. I would imagine. It does happen? It does. I've known of some who were preschool.
So in homeschooling, there wouldn't be any necessity, of course, for recess time?
No.
Lunch break, that pretty much...
the parents obviously have to, are in charge of that. And,
right, so they don't have to go to gym, they don't have to play this or that. So basically, if it whatever the program academically is in the classroom, that's what someone.
Right, and I don't know whether they also prescribe anything for fitness or that sort of thing. My guess is it's mainly academic.
All right, so it does happen. Now it can happen before, in other words, a child actually starts in the school, in the school premises itself. So.
I would think so.
And can that go throughout high school?
It can.
All right, so it can be all
Can.
homeschooling.
I mean, it's unusual, but it does happen.
All right, so maybe have a school teacher that...
And I believe there has to be some communication at various times during the school year with personnel at the school, a designated individual who's in charge of that, to make sure that the parent is actually...
How about tests? Would there be like in the school type test? Because if the parent did it at home.
That's right. I don't know. I would think there would have to be some way that the parent could show that he or she is actually covering this curriculum with a student.
Yeah. Now we've here in the city of Fall River we have that Atlantis. Mm-hmm. Charter school,
yes,
which is going to eventually move from, I believe, around South Main Street in the South End.
Correct, Townsend Hill, I believe.
And they've located, or they have a new location that is at somewhere at the end of Jefferson Street,
correct,
Fall River, which they've got approval for
recently.
So, in other words, as we speak, maybe construction could be.
It could be. I'm not aware that it is, but it could be. They would have to get moving quickly if it is, because the winter weather, they're limited in how much they can do.
Do you know if they're planning to open up in 2017?
I'm not sure. My guess is that might be too soon, but I'm not sure.
I guess they could open incrementally.
Yeah, they could.
Because they could keep 2 locations and just keep.
They could.
Over time, adding additional classrooms. Now, in Fall River, is there another charter school?
Yes. What is it called now? All of a sudden, the name
Well,
escapes me.
that's,
It's usually on
Argosy
the
or
top.
something?
Argosy, you're correct.
All right. Now, to have a student go to one of the charter schools, it's by lottery.
Yes, it is.
So in other words, all the names go in a hat?
Yeah, I would assume so. There must be some way to draw it out.
So any parents could opt to send their child to a charter school.
Yes, they
by
could.
placing their name in,
Yes, they
in
could.
the lottery scheme of that.
And it's not by academic ability or anything else. It is strictly the lottery. So if the student happens to be a special needs student and his name gets picked, he's in.
And the
Or
charter
she.
school. So the charter school basically is equipped to take any type of student.
Maybe, we hope so.
But they have, well, they've been open.
Right.
How long? Do you know how long Atlantis has been in operation?
Oh, a long time.
So,
Jim Gibney was superintendent back when they opened up, so this
okay.
goes back a long time.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, all right. So actually, so apparently they have a proven record.
It seems so. I had never heard anything negative about them.
So, all right. I guess there's a question on the ballot too about charter schools.
There
Are you
is.
familiar with that question?
Somewhat. It's the question is to
Increase it?
the cap. There is right now there is a cap on how many charter schools we can have in the state. So what this would do, nothing with any of the existing charter schools. What it would do, the proposal is to allow the DESE, the Department of Education, State Department of Education, to increase by 12 every year, and obviously those who are opposed to that would prefer that the cap remain in effect.
All right. Now, my understanding, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that they haven't reached their cap.
I heard that also. However, what they're saying is, they can, regardless of the question, they can increase up to the cap. However,
Right.
what this proposed law would do is allow the state to raise by 12 every year indefinitely.
And that would go beyond.
It would go
the cap,
beyond the cap, obviously.
which, in a way, you'd have. If the education is basically the same, what seems to be the? We have a lot of school officials not for the cap. Excuse me, not for the increase.
Right. Part of it is money, although my impression is that the money is maybe a weaker argument than it appears. The claim is that we've lost public school systems, regular public school systems have lost $400 million, I believe, just in the last year. Because of money that they lose, because the money follows the student. So if you have a student leave a regular public school to go to a charter school, the money is supposed to follow him to the charter school. Now that's not entirely accurate, because that doesn't happen from day one. The state actually, initially I believe that's the way it was, but at some point in time, the state actually began to reimburse the sending schools somewhat for having lost these students. So they've cushioned the effect to some degree. And I think the first year, the state gives back 100%. So you lose a particular student, the state still gives you that in that first year that the 100% for that student, even though he's lost. And then they drop it. I think it's to 25%. I can't remember how many years that they will receive the 25% for. So
even though the student
is not there, so it drops to 25%. So I think that helps. Now, there are a couple of issues with the students leaving the schools. At some point, initially, as students begin leaving the schools to go to charter schools, you do lose money over time. There are fixed costs that you have to deal with. As you lose students, initially, it's not like you can close schools right away. At some point, if you've lost a number of students, then you might have to consolidate and whatnot. Initially, you can't, so that's a fixed cost that you have to eat. But you are getting some money still from the state, which might help deal with that. Another issue which can happen is often a lot of the charter schools do not take as many special needs students or as many ELL students as the sending schools are left with, which means that's another higher cost also.
But if it's by lottery, aren't they required to take
whoever's there? However, the parent has to apply. So therefore, if whoever doesn't apply doesn't go into the lottery. So you can kind of figure that out. If you're a concerned parent and it's important to you to have your child go to this charter school, then because you're that concerned, you're that involved with your child's education, in a sense, you have someone who's committed. However, the person who doesn't apply, maybe you have a lesser level of commitment. Not in all cases. You have people who do want to remain in a regular public school. However, there are a number of students whose parents don't apply simply because they're not that involved.
I see what you're saying. So basically, then the public school system could end up with a lot of students without support from their parents.
That's correct. And actually, if you look at an extreme example down the road, not initially, but you say after years of the increase of charter schools statewide, you could draw off a lot of the better students and families, and you're left with a situation in the regular public schools where they're dealing with a lot of the weaker kids. Now, let me just give you an example of a school that doesn't do that, a charter school that doesn't do that, that specifically seeks out the weaker students. And I just saw an editorial about that recently in the Herald News. It was written by Tom Birmingham. You may recall Tom Birmingham used to be the president of the Senate in Massachusetts. Years back, he ran for governor and lost. And he talked about a charter school. It's up north somewhere. I forget. In fact, I think there are a couple of them in two different communities. They actually sought after weaker students. Now, generally speaking, a lot of charter schools do not do this, and to try to help them to do better. And actually,
well, it wasn't part of the charter school philosophy that they would be somewhat experimental?
Yes. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't realize this. One of the people who was big in terms of pushing the concept of charter schools right at the beginning was Albert Shanker, who was president of the AFT, the American Federation of Teachers, going way back then. And he saw this as a way, he said it should be teacher-run, essentially union-run. He was a union man, obviously. And restrictions should be loosened on the teachers so they could experiment with specifically some of the weaker students, and anything that they learned from that could then be transferred to
public.
Well, it didn't end up that way.
Yeah, I've received a notice here, and it says debate Monday, October 17th at 7 p.m. And this is at the BCC auditorium. What is the debate about? I don't seem to. Oh, question number 2. Okay, and question number 2 is in regards to the charter schools. All right, so If you're interested in more of the aspects of charter schools, it'll be a debate Monday, October 17th at 7 p.m., BCC Auditorium. And who's going to debate? Give me a notice here.
Six panelists.
Okay.
Mike Rodrigues, Senator Michael Rodrigues on the yes side, Marty Walsh, and it was going to be Kerry Rodriguez, it's now Michael Kern. On the no side, it is Stephen Crawford, Rebecca Cusack from the FREA, and I don't know who that third is.
All right, if you didn't hear that, Senator Mike Rodrigues will be on one side, and you have the president of the Florida Teachers Association on the other side, but each person will
Three
have
panelists on each side.
a couple of other people accompanying them, and there'll be actually 3 on each side, so it should be interesting. 7 p.m. BCC Auditorium. Maybe that's a good place for the school committee people to
It could very well be, yes.
Some good.
And you have some high-powered people on there. Marty Walsh
Yeah.
is actually coming here for this.
So, okay, let me, I guess,
Broadcast on 10/5 Channel 22 in Springfield.
all right,
Channel 95.
That's
all right, so we just got that notice in, and parent support. Always a problem?
It can be in certain cases. Although
How do you get,
interestingly,
I guess, let me go a little further. How do you get parents to support their children in regards to education? You can't drag them in. You really can't, charge them criminally.
no.
It's nothing new. It's been going on ever since there were schools. Some parents were interested in their child's education, and I'm sure on a frontier there were some parents didn't even send their kids to school.
Yeah, that's absolutely
You
correct.
pick up the eggs in the morning, milk the cows, and you're not going to school, period.
Right. And it's been a difficult problem. I don't really know how you solve it. The school department has initiated a program called the Parent Academy, where and I think it's potentially a plus, because what they do is they provide programs and courses for.
Isn't it, Gabe, intuitive that a parent?
It should be, but apparently it's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah, no, and interestingly enough, some of them are very good. I attended a meeting yesterday of special needs parents, and it was. And they were clearly very interested in the welfare of their children and in the education. These are children with problems.
Okay, you heard it from school committee man Gabe Andrade. We'll have you back here in 3 weeks.
Sounds
with,
good.
Possibly Joe Martins.
I'll have to talk to him. He's been delinquent.
How does he get punished?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you out there for watching, and see you next time.